Next is Council of Ephesus. And council before we talk about Council of Ephesus, we need to understand the political background of this theological issue, because it was not just a theological issue, it was at the same time a political issue. So, let's see. Okay, before Constantinople was the capital, there were three centers in Christian, in the Roman Empire. There are three Christian centers in 3rd and 4th century. In third, maybe first, second, third century, Rome, of course, and then Alexandria and Antioch. And most theological issue was debate between Alexandria and Antioch, and Rome was not involved with it much. And suddenly, and then Rome claimed the supremacy of Rome because it is the capital of the empire. But suddenly, Constantine moved the capital to Constantinople. Then the capital moved. So what happened to Rome is Rome started to claim this supremacy not based upon the claim to the capital of the empire, but they are starting to claim that they started to claim a spiritual, they're starting to argue a spiritual claim that Rome was founded by Apostle Peter. And so there become 1, 2, 3, 4 centers now. And then Alexandria and Antioch, they have, in the East, they have completely different view. Alexandria, as you know, in terms of interpretation of Bible, they are more allegorical. And in Antioch, they are more historical, meaning literal. So their interpretation of the Bible is quite different. The way they think is quite different. And most theological issues are between Antioch and Alexandria. So we say that this is School of Antioch and School of Alexandria, completely different. And most theological issues was done between them. And suddenly there become another capital appeared. So what happened is then there are three important cities now in the East, and Rome is the only one in the West. So Rome, while arguing for a spiritual claim for supremacy of Rome, the Peter is the founder, but at the same time, Peter is also the founder of Jerusalem Church, right? Peter is the founder of Jerusalem Church, but at that time Jerusalem was completely ruined and there was no influence at all. But when Rome started to argue for spiritual claim, and then they set up that Jerusalem Church because of the foundation, because it was founded by Peter, like Rome has to be included in the discussion, and they wanted to make an alliance with the Jerusalem so that Rome can kind of when some kind of rivalry were going on, so that they can make alliance with Jerusalem and fight against the Eastern churches. That's what he thought in the Rome. But what happened is Jerusalem was really quite minimal in their influence. It was just a symbol and no influence or no political or no theological influence or power or any strength at all. So what happened is usually and since Antioch was close to Constantinople, Bishop of Antioch had a lot of influence on Constantinople. So eventually Alexandria was a rival to Antioch, so Alexandria made an alliance with political alliance with Rome. So Antioch, Constantinople alliance, and Alexandria and Rome alliance. And then after the Council of Constantinople, Antioch was there. Here we know that there was Apollinarius here, and because of Apollinarius' view about Jesus' humanity, he is not fully human. He took on the divinity, divine mind. So against him in Antioch, they developed another theology. In response to Apollinarius, they felt that they need to explain about Jesus' humanity. So what they did, that's the theological background. So there was a person called Theodosius of Mopsuestia. Then what he said, there is a divinity of Jesus, and then there is a humanity of Jesus. And then divinity of Jesus and humanity of Jesus was conjoined in the womb of Mary. And therefore, Jesus had divinity on one hand, and Jesus also had full humanity on the other hand. So that's why he is trying to explain the divinity and humanity of Jesus in response to Apollinarius. Okay, so there was a conjunction of man and God conjoined in the womb of Mary. He was explaining this in order to defend the full humanity of God, of Jesus, because Apollinarius was saying that Jesus is not fully human, so he wanted to emphasize the full humanity. This is what he explaining. So there was a divinity and humanity, they were conjoined in the womb of Mary. And this is what he said. And so the word that he uses, conjunction. Conjunction is actually one identity and another there are two identities and they stick together. But they have each have its own identity. It is not a mix. It maintains and retains its own identity, its humanity and divinity. Therefore, he wants to preserve the full humanity of Jesus. Thus, in the meantime, his pupil, a man called Nestorius, he was a pupil of Theodosius, and then he became a professor of a kind of a seminary in Antioch. And then he was a famous professor there. And then later he became the bishop. He became the bishop of Constantinople. So, because so and Nestorius, the issue now is that how the divinity of Jesus and humanity of Jesus, what is the relationship of humanity and divinity of Jesus, how they are together in Jesus, one person. He's not a two person, right? He's just one person, but how could he have two identity, one divine and one human? That was a question. And and there were and this was the conjunction is the way Theodosius of Macedonia was taught about, and he was beautiful. Nestorius had also the same view. The humanity and divinity was conjoined in the womb of Mary. And when he became uh, the bishop of Constantinople, then the people in Alexandria are afraid. He became a powerful man in Constantinople. He's going to be an advisor to the emperor, and then if we influence the emperor, then he may use his own theology as a weapon to attack Alexandria. They were afraid of it, so they start kind of try to discredit. Uh, they they start kind of try to discredit Nestorius as a theologian. That's an issue called the term as Theotokos. This is meaning is the carrier of God, meaning Theos is God, right? So carrier or bearer, or carrier or bearer, or simply mother of God. So somebody come to the bishop of Constantinople, Nestorius, and asked a question. And that question was, can we call Mary as Theotokos? Can you call Mary as Mother of God? Can you call Mary Mother of God? And and so he gave an answer, and then because the bishop of Alexandria, Cyril, knows how he is going to answer, then he immediately jumped at it and attacked Nestorius, and then he he sent a letter to Rome, and so that even Bishop of Rome is involved with this issue, and then the Bishop of Rome sent a letter to and condemning Nestorius, and then the emperor was annoyed, so and Nestorius was discredited, so the emperor called a council to discuss this issue. That's Council of Ephesus in 431. Okay. Okay, shall we take a 10 minutes break? And then I'm going to explain what was the discussion in Ephesus Council. Okay? Yeah, yeah. What's the situation about coronavirus there? In Israel, there's a lot of people are getting coronavirus even if they have vaccinations, right? Mm. Ah, yeah, yeah. Mm, mm, ah, yeah. Mm, 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 mm. Yeah, yeah, right. It means just that you're not gonna get seriously ill, right? Yeah. The benefit of vaccine is, yeah. Mm-hmm, 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 yeah. Mm-hmm, 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 mm. Okay. Shall we start again? Okay. Okay. What was the issue about Theotokos is somebody came to uh, Nestorius and asked if we can call Mary Mother of God. Then the answer by Nestorius was, uh, Mary, of course, Mary is a Mother of God, but at the same time, he's also a mother of man, right? Because he wanted to preserve full humanity, right? So what he said is Mary has to be called mother of man too at the same time. Then if we call Mary mother of God and mother of man, then it's too long and awkward. So we better say it is it is we are better off saying that Mary is mother of Christ. So we should say that Mary is Christokos, mother of Christ. That's his answer. What he's saying is only about we have to preserve not only divinity of Christ, but also also have to maintain the humanity of Christ too. That's all what he meant by saying this. Jesus is also, Mary is mother of Christ. So Mary is not only Jesus have not only divinity, he has a full humanity. We have to recognize both, and it is a balanced idea about Jesus. So we better saying that Mary is mother of Christ. And Cyril, Bishop of Alexandria, he took a chance because he knew that because of theology in Antioch, he knew that Nestorius would say it like this. he immediately jumped at it and then accused Nestorius as heresy because by calling Mary Mother of Christ, Nestorius in Antioch, their theology is man and God conjoined in the womb of Mary, right? That means Christ, the person of Christ was then become the person of Christ somehow sounds like person of Christ was created in the womb of Mary. What Nestorius said is, but according to Cyril and Alexandria, Christ, Jesus must have been second person, right? Second person of Trinity. That means that he has to exist from the beginning, right? Then if you call Mary Mother of Christ, then this second person exists only at the conjunction in the womb of Mary. Then there are times that Christ did not exist. That means you are denying the divinity of Christ. Because he is second person, he is existing from the beginning, but you are making Christ existing with Mary, so you are denying the divinity of Christ, therefore you are heresy. That's what Cyril, Bishop of Alexandria, said. So what Nestorius said, so the council was convened, and then there were Constantinople and Antioch alliance, and then Alexandria, and there was Cyril. He sent a letter to Rome, Bishop of Rome. So Bishop of Rome sent a letter, and then there was an envoy. Here he said at the beginning, Jerusalem was making alliance with Alexandria, so the rivalry was going on in the council, and then the envoy from Rome came, and then Rome came, and they were on the side of Cyril. Therefore, Nestorius was condemned as a heresy, and then Cyril and Nestorius has to resign in the council, and Cyril kind of here triumph. But what Cyril thought is his view is prevailing and everybody is accepting his view. But what he had in mind is the difference between Nestorius and Cyril is second person Jesus Logos. Second person Logos came into the womb of Mary and took on humanity. Therefore, he had also the divine mind. That's what Cyril thought. So he was basically Apollinarian, and people didn't know that he had Apollinarian. People simply thought that Nestorius is talking about divinity, humanity, two nature of Jesus. And Cyril is talking about no, he can't have two nature. He can have only one nature. Jesus is a one person. Two nature sounds like two persons. Jesus has humanity. Jesus has also divinity. And Nestorius said Jesus had two hypostases. And hypostasis is a kind of identity. So in Greek, hypostasis, Nestorius said Jesus had two hypostases. And so if he has two identity, if he has two, it sounds like he sounds like two person. But Jesus is one person. The Syrians said we need to recognize Jesus as one person, and he had only one nature because he is Logos. And that one nature is divine. So Syria is one nature, one person, and Nestorius emphasizing two nature, dividing divinity and humanity, and he sounded like two person. But anyway, Nestorius was condemned, and Cyril thought that everybody agreed with his opinion, but people didn't know that he had this kind of Apollinarius view. People simply thought that he is trying to say that Jesus is one person, one nature, against seemingly two-person idea of Nestorius. So maybe a similar analogy can be Nestorius' view is like oil and water. Maybe Cyril's view like wine and water. Then what happened? Then when you mix oil and water, these two elements still remain, while while maintaining just one bottle, right? One bottle, still one bottle of water, but there are two elements of oil and water, right? But what is said sounds like it's like two bottles. He didn't say it's two persons, but sound like two persons. In Cyril's case, it is Cyril say when we mix wine and water, they are not divided in it. It completely mix. It completely make a union, right? So this way, he was trying to say that in one nature, Jesus has some kind of have one nature in one person, kind of thing. So, but the essence is that what Nestorius is saying, that he is trying to simply defend the full humanity. That's what this all about what Nestorius said. But the entire situation was completely politically motivated, and politicking was going on in the Council of Ephesus. Okay, and after Nestorius resigned, because he was condemned, and Nestorius resigned, and in 485, the disciples of Nestorius were still staying in Antioch, and in Antioch area, Nestorius' view was still popular. But in 485, there was an emperor called Zeno, and then he was pushing hard a serious view, and he was pushing hard to accept it in Antioch. So finally, the Nestorians, they left Antioch and moved to the east. And where did they go? And they went to the area of today's Iraq, Babylon area, Mesopotamia. They went to Babylon, and they stayed. First, they went to Babylon. They formed the Nestorian church in Babylon. So in Baghdad. So Baghdad become center, Baghdad become the center of Nestorius Church, and still there are remaining of Nestorian Church in Baghdad, 1,500-year-old churches in Baghdad. And then when Nestorian churches, they were Greeks, when they go to Baghdad, they brought with them Greek philosophy and Greek science, Greek mathematics, Euclid, Aristotle, etc., etc. So Arabs learned this kind of Greek philosophy, Aristotle philosophy and science, math, geometry, Euclid, etc., etc. They kept it, and when in the time of Renaissance, where people find that Arabs have the Greek philosophy and Arabs maintaining Greek and Greek science and math, the most Western Europe lost for a long time. They found that Arabs maintained it. And it was thanks to Nestorian Church centered in Baghdad. They were in Baghdad for 100 years, and in 7th century, after Islam took over, the conversion of Muslims were forbidden, so they went further to the east, and then they went to even to the city of Chang'an. Today, the name of today's city is Xi'an. And this city was the capital of China at that time in 7th, 8th century. It was the capital city, and it is 11 times larger than Vatican City today. And it was the starting point of Silk Road. And then they came up to here, and then they evangelized, and then they built churches here. So there are stone stele in China, in the city of Chang'an, and they have list of Nestorian priests, and they have list of Nestorian churches in China in the stone stele, probably dated back to 8th century, like in the middle of 750, something like that. And then they call Nestorian church the religion of brightness. Religion of brightness, or radiant religion, a religion of a shining religion, they called. And then they've got list of around 700 churches, record of the names of churches and record of priests in the stele, and it is still in Chang'an, Xi'an, China. If you have chance to see it, if you have chance to go to the city, you can see it as a monument in that city. When Marco Polo went to China in 13th century, and then when he came back to Venice, Italy, and he wrote about his trip to China, and he lived in China for about 10 years, and then he said he said in the book that he wrote, Travels of Marco Polo, something like that, and then he said there are at that time, 13th century, 700,000 Christians in China. It was like 13th century. He said in his book, 700,000 Christians in China. But in 9th century, actually Tang dynasty, the Chinese emperor declared all Western religion illegal, so Christians had to go underground. But when Marco Polo went in 13th century, he said that there are still 700, he estimates that there are 700,000 Christians in 13th century in China. That's what we know about Nestorian Church.